episode of Live in the Vision. I'm your host, Chris Jacobson, and I'm very happy to have in the studio with us today Ariel Gray from Gray Inspired. Thank you, Ariel, for being on.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
So if we could start with just maybe a little bit of background about who you are, what your business is, and kind of how you came to be here.
My name's Ariel Gray. My business is Gray Inspired. Kind of what started me to get my business going was a business writing class at USD. I was already sewing and starting to sew blankets and stuff for my friends. And then this business writing class, we had a final where we were supposed to create like a fake business. And I was like, well, I'm kind of already doing that. So it gave me tips and really how to open up a business. And I saved up some money, and then I just went and did it.
Nice. How was it taking that leap and starting the business?
It was really scary because it was literally all of my money. I probably had like maybe $200 left. I was 22, 23. So I was really young and had a newborn baby.
Oh, wow.
And my daughter at the time too. So
Wow. Nothing like necessity to get you motivated to go to work and do your thing.
Yep.
So, talk a little bit about that. So, I'm sure you had being a young mother obstacles, things that you had to scheduling and that kind of thing. How would you describe how you sort of combated that? What struggles did you face? Talk a little bit about the early days.
When I first started my business, I was really young. I was working a full-time job. I was in school full-time as well. So I was really, really busy. And then, of course, I had little children. I would be working, and then I would work on my business from home at that time because I didn't have a shop. And then at night, from like 9 to 1, because I was doing a lot more sewing, or if I needed to do orders, I would be on my computer and doing the sewing stuff. So it was nonstop, and I didn't get very much sleep.
So like 9 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Yeah.
That's late. But that's when so much stuff gets done. When kids are asleep, I personally do a lot from the hours of 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. because it's a time of clarity. The house is quiet. You can get things done. I find that a lot of people that are working on starting a small business or a side hustle, call it whatever you will, they're doing it after their day job. So you were working this entire time. And how long did you work full time until you decided to just focus solely on your business?
Well, from the ages of 22 up until about 6 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the better part of 5 years.
Yeah.
Nice. I think that's important. It doesn't happen overnight, and a lot of times there has to be a 9 to 5 job that sort of finances in the early days before it really gets going. It's very difficult for a business to be profitable in the startup. So I think that's important. So you were a full-time student and working on the business and full-time. What sort of grit did it take to be able to do all of those things simultaneously, like the day-to-day? I'm sure that had to be tiring.
It probably got hardest when I was in like the nursing school program because of all of the clinical hours and stuff you had to do after school.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of coffee and just a mindset. I just had to think that I could do this, and I knew that it wasn't always going to be forever. I knew that at some point it was going to change, and I would get rest in the future.
Sure. And I figure being women's clothing, that's something that gets a lot of likes or dislikes. What people sort of care most about. So how did you deal with what am I going to sell, or how am I going to position this product to a certain clientele? Like, how did you deal with the rejection maybe, or the early struggle to get it off the ground?
So I started with like my handmade items, and then I also went to kids clothing, and then I transitioned into women's clothing. And kind of just looked at a lot of other online boutiques. One of my favorite ones that I followed, which I still follow, would be like Philly Flare. So I just kind of looked at the types of clothing that they had and what people were buying, and that's how I figured my market, because
Sure.
I knew there was a need around here in town.
And so did some of those not do as well early on? Like what caused you to
Yes.
pivot between?
Children's clothing did not do well. I hung on to it for a long time. It was more expensive actually for me to buy than women's clothes. And if anyone was like myself, I'm looking for kids' clothes at a discounted price. I don't want to spend $30 for a shirt for a child that's going to run, grow out of it
Right.
very shortly.
Practical.
Mhm.
So you noticed the patterns and adjusted accordingly. So I know you do a lot on social media. Talk to us a little bit about that. Did you always do social media?
That's
or
how I started.
was social media?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, I started that way, and then before I opened my storefront, so I did social media only for about 2 years. But then I also integrated doing the, not really home shows, what are they called? Like craft shows?
Mhm.
I did those
Sure.
along with social media, but I didn't always do lives. That wasn't until about a year after my business had started.
Okay. And what did you experience with the lives when you started doing those?
A lot more sales.
Nice.
And they were just really fun, and I got a lot more people to know who I was, and
Yeah.
I encouraged people to share. And that was before Facebook kind of changed their algorithm with their sharing platform.
Sure.
But-
You were in the early days where it probably had really good organic reach.
It did, yes.
Yeah. That's interesting. So it was twofold really, because it was sales, but it was also branding, because a lot more people were knowing you and seeing you as your following was increasing. I think that's a huge one for businesses to get their brand out there. They may have a fantastic product, but if nobody knows about them, the marketing is a really important part of that. So I like how innovative you were, just kind of going direct to consumer, changing different tactics that you did. How do you adapt that strategy to the market that you see? Like how do you look at what's working and what's not working?
As far as like live sales or
Customer engagement, or how many do you go by, likes, followers, comments, like how much activity that you get around a certain product? Or
so if I'm working on just products, there's times where if I'm unsure about a product, I'll do a pre-order
Mhm.
where people can buy the product prior, and then I know how many I'm going to order. Because there's been times where I order something and I've sold out of it. There's also been times where I order something and then I don't sell any. But doing the pre-order or asking people what they like in my Facebook group prior to purchasing is really helpful.
Nice. Yeah, you get to kind of test your audience.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. So seeing potential in different things or recognizing patterns, how do you foresee yourself increasing your business? As you're 5 years in, you're established, I would say, but how do you foresee the progression going from where you are now?
I do plan to start doing more lives, but I need a little bit more inventory because currently I'm doing just 1 live a week, and I would like to do probably 3, and I think that could really expand my business because there's a lot of people that are usually purchasing during live sales, but it takes a lot of work. I mean, it's hours before and hours after, so it's more about a time and having enough help.
Sure. And how do you foresee yourself scaling, I guess, to that demand? The more, like you said, the more you choose to do, the more time it takes to do it. Are you still doing this solo, or do you have help?
I have 2 employees at the moment, so it's me full time, and then I have another gal named Lindsay who's pretty much full time, and Nicole is my other employee, and she's really helpful. I would like to have more employees. I've started scaling more the last about 6 months
Mm-hmm.
when I really started going only focusing on my store because I'm not in school at the moment. I don't have another job, and I've noticed my sales have almost doubled.
That's great.
So I really think we're at a point where I can
Sure.
start expanding more.
That's terrific, and especially at a time like this to have sales increasing. That's certainly an achievement. What would you say is the reason for the upswing or the uptick that you're noticing?
Because I really decided I was gonna. I mean, I was at a point where I was like, do I want to keep doing this, or do I want to get like a regular job, like using my science degree? And I kind of prayed about it and decided that I was just going to do this full force, but I needed to focus all of my energy into it. When I started doing that, responding, being more engaged with customers, and just being more available for everybody, I've noticed just better
outcomes.
Better
Sure.
outcomes. Yeah.
Sure. And that must have been a terrifying decision. Like, I'm not going to go the traditional job route. I'm going to go all in on my business, and it's paid off for you.
Yeah.
So what would you say, like, what causes, because I think the average person is like, I need to know I have a paycheck coming in. What gives you that mindset, or what gave you the determination to keep pushing at it when it would have been easy to get a job elsewhere, but you decided to keep following with your business?
Well, it was scary, and I did have that mindset, which is why I hung on to a job for so long, because I mean, I am single, and I've been single the last 2.5 years now. So it was really scary, and that was really hard for me to decide to not do a job. But I knew I could do it, but it's taken me 5 years to get to this point. I forgot what else I was going to say on that.
That's all right. That's all right. What, I guess for the person who's sitting on that ledge, so to speak, metaphorically, like to start something but just kind of scared, hesitant, reluctant, what would you say to that person?
If someone was really sure that they wanted to start a business, I would say that they would kind of need to get their finances in order first. I did start my business on a loan. I mean, I had saved up $10,000 is what I went with all my inventory, and I've still never had a loan since then. So I've just bought, and as I grow, then I just kind of use the money that I get in to expand.
Yeah, scaling as the business dictates. That's really smart.
So I think, yeah, having your finances in order is a good thing.
Sure. There's a lot of planning, I imagine, in terms of inventory management. I bet is really important.
Yeah. So if someone, like if I was to start over, I would probably work like a regular job and maybe like a waitressing job on the side, just to have extra income coming in and save towards that goal.
Sure. Because it takes a lot of time to build the following like you have. So from where you are now, 5 years in, you've got a good local following. Where do you see yourself going, say, next 3 years, 5 years?
I would say I hope to have a bigger location. I would really like to have kind of like a more of a shop style, and I would want it to be on Broadway versus kind of downtown. So yeah, bigger, more inventory, more choices, and I want to get more options, because right now I'm just doing women's clothing. I'd like to get into like gifts and maybe a little bit of decor. I did start selling some other products like CBD, so just kind of expanding what else I sell.
That's really exciting. We wish you all the best, and we really appreciate you being part of this interview. So thank you so much, Ariel.
Thank you for having me.